fly-in America, Senator. But power can be innocent.
You're gonna go to war. That son of a bitch brought the war to us. You know you can't win this. It's suicide.
The greatest gladiator match in the history of the world. Son of Krypton versus Bat of Gotham.
You're psychotic.
That is a 3-syllable word for any thought too big for little minds.
It's time you learn what it means to be a man.
Stay down! If I wanted it, you'd be dead already.
If man won't kill God, the devil will do it.
What have you done?
She with you?
I thought she was with you.
Alright folks, so this is going to be a special episode of Retrospect Reviews. This is what I'm going to call Batman v Superman v Captain America Civil War, or BVS v CACW, right? Or God forbid if I want to say Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice v Captain America Civil War, right? But yeah, it's like that, right? So that's a little background in terms of why I'm covering both films, right? And not the latter film, right? Which I really should be talking about, right? But yeah, we actually, I was reminded of this, we actually talked about both of these films when they came out, right? So when the podcast, when we started podcasting back in 2015, yeah, we talked about BVS when it came out, right? Theatrically, right? We also talked about the Ultimate Edition, which came out a few months afterwards on digital. And then, of course, in 2016, we talked about Civil War when that came out as well, right? So yeah, in 2016, we talked about both of these movies when they came out, right? When BVS came out, well, we talked about the trailer for BVS first. Then we talked about the theatrical version of it. And then when the Ultimate Edition came out on digital, we talked about that, right? Then in between that time, we talked about Civil War when it came out as well, right? So, we have a history with these films, right? And then, we will bring these movies up over the years, especially with you, and your worst of the decade, or worst of the 2010s. Your number one, of course, was BVS, right? I'll never forget that, right? But these two shows are celebrating their 10th anniversary this year, right? And of course, yes, the easier pick would have, well, the better pick, of course, would be Civil War, right? Because, yeah, compared to BVS, yeah, that movie stands out way more. That movie has held up more, right? And sorry, I mean, there's probably little to no, Snyder cultists who, listen to this. But yeah, this episode is going to lean way more into Civil War, right? Because I'm sorry to say, right. But yeah, BVS does not hold up at all, right? The flaws just get worse and worse. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the flaws get worse and worse with every rewatch you give that show, right?
I was open back when BVS first came out. I was very, very open to the possibility of we get to like some kind of really good director's cut, and then we just didn't get that. So it's like, all right, well, you're not going to improve with time. And I don't think it's some kind of misunderstood masterpiece with that going to get better with time, or going to age like wine or something like that. No, none of that. Right? It's just a bunch of people who, sorry to say, it's just a bunch of people. Once you could peek behind the curtain of a certain cultural movements, or if it is just people just propping something up and holding it'll stay together. And I say the difference between certain types of people. Now, some people will just hold on to nonsense, and the only reason nonsense propping up because you have certain belligerent people who effectively have no shame and will just be propping something up. That's how you get flat earths and all kind of thing. They have no reason to lose. They have nothing to lose, so they'll just say anything. That's how it is, right? Like literally, I've never heard a good defense of this movie, and every time I talk to somebody who liked the movie, either don't really engage in the movie enough to know what they're talking about, or is like a delusional person, like talking to a flat earther or something. I've never heard any good defenses of this movie, right? I see a couple of people try or something, but like not even close to convincing me this was a good movie. I forget who it was who made a great video about why the movie don't work, and he talked about scenes versus moments. I forget the guy's name. He's like an internet guy. He's kind of popular a while back. But this dude is like a perfect example of why this movie don't work so particularly well. And then yeah, one of the big problems with the movie is that it didn't have a Man of Steel 2. Like if this built off of a Man of Steel 2, it might not have been that bad. This kind of things. And I'll fully admit there's like the one concession I'll give to the movie. I will fully admit that if the movie wasn't so heavily compromised from a narrative spoiler standpoint, I probably would have enjoyed more. Like if I went in completely blind, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more. Like, oh, they spoiled Wonder Woman like a year out. So it's like, what the hell? They spoiled Doomsday. Like that was kind of a big problem. In fact, they spoiled where Doomsday coming from a long time already. Like we know not only know Doomsday in the movie, but we know how Doomsday gonna be in the movie. It's like, all right, well, let us spoil everything then. That's another thing too. Like if we went in completely blind, it might not be so bad. And then well, the last point that we're gonna get to that is yeah, the actual core conceit of it was bad, which is the fight itself. Batman v Superman, the fight sucked. If they got everything else wrong and they got the fight right, again, we wouldn't be talking about this the way they did. Because like the one thing they had to get right, as I say, you had one job. But they can get that right. So it's like, whatever, what are we doing here? I mean, it's a waste of time. However, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, right? So just a few things for you before we begin, right? So here's the thing, right? I was very hesitant about doing a 10th anniversary retrospect review of Batman v Superman, right?
Right, yeah.
I really wanted to do Civil War, right? I just wanted that excuse to rewatch that show, right? Because for those who don't know, that was in my best of the decade. I actually tied it with the Winter Soldier, right? Although I will not say this kind of selling myself out here one time, right? Like Winter Soldier is like like top tier. Like to me, that is the number one best MCU film
So yeah,
I've ever seen. Right?
Winter Soldier for me is the tighter film.
Yeah.
Like I like Civil War enough, but Civil War a little messy, a little big, a little bloated at parts, and the stuff that should have been more serious wasn't serious. But when it got serious, it got really serious.
Yes.
And really worked. And the balance that for what it was, and I don't know, like it just struck a balance that I think Soldier is not as strong with, as it was. So that's how I feel about it because like, all right, they're doing this, but here's why this shouldn't have been serious or less serious. And then the convolution of Soldier. All right, so this is one comparison I've seen people do, and I don't fully agree. But again, it don't really matter because of it wasn't earned in one movie, but it was earned in the other movie, which is the whole plan. Like you have two guys, again, very similar movies. Two guys have a master plan to get the good guys to fight each other and destroy each other, right? Cool.
Mhm.
But the difference is that because I don't know who Batman is in this universe, I had to learn all of that from one movie. I don't know who Lex Luthor is in this universe, I had to learn all of that from one movie. You barely know who Superman is because when you have him in one movie. None of the characterization and the familiarity and the discourse built up. And another problem too is that because you're watching the MCU build itself up over time, Man of Steel, again, if we had a Man of Steel 2 and they build up Superman a little more, Batman v Superman would have hit us badly. But it's like you're just jumping straight into it. And it had this weird, like another weird problem. Because Superman is so and Batman are so popular as entities, they kind of rely on your general concession of what these characters should be, and then try to subvert that, but then didn't build up their own characterization as it was. Especially Batman. Batman in particular had it bad. So it's like a lot of people hate how Batman is treated in this movie because of the and look, I don't really care about the guns thing. Like that is not the problem. Right? The problem is that why it is that you'd have this attitude about it as it is, and it's not explained particularly well. You have to do all this extra world building and relying on what you think Batman should be or shouldn't be as it was. And yeah, again, when you try to explain it like that, you sound like a crazy person, right? You sound like a crazy person because it already sets itself up particularly well, right? It might make perfect sense to you, but you have to understand how this would not make sense to somebody who even again I kind of understand the mindset because I would like to consider myself a Batman fan. It do explain itself why. So that's why Martha does just fall flat and come across as laughable. Sorry. Meanwhile, Iron Man also had a meltdown over his mother, and he took it a lot more seriously, right? Same thing. Just again, ideas and intent over execution. Batman v Superman was so badly executed in its concessions, it don't really work. And I've never heard anybody make a good defense for this. Every time I hear somebody talk about this, it sounds like either postmodern gobbledygook or a person just like defending flat earther thing. You have to think about cinema and think about like how aesthetics work on such a different level that it don't make a lick of sense. I was like, well, it don't make sense talking to a person like that at a certain point.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, you could believe that and take it seriously. And again, another problem is that they couldn't build from it. So if you build from it better, right, and you had other movies that build from what we were trying to do here, But they didn't do that. Justice League is a mess. Like that was the other movie that brought back Superman. It's like, well, what are we doing here? Again, if they built from it better, it might have, again, in retrospect, be better because like, oh, they kind of explained a little thing, or like the whole Lois thing with Flash. Like you get what they're trying to do, but again, ideas of execution. Snyder just messed it up in that way. And I don't like we could debate if we could completely blame Snyder for this or not, but because he was so heavily as a creative force, a lot of it does don't come together or work as it does. So whatever. I was just incredibly annoyed at how they treated these characters. Pretty bad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
had money invested, I'm sorry for you. But yeah, I don't. I hope you don't. I forget who it was. That's somebody who was like super popular at the time, and he was like, um, you're an idiot for thinking Civil War should come up against Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman go and blow this movie out of the water. Like, boy,
Really?
talk about age like that.
Yeah,
Talk about age like that.
you
I forget
know.
who it was. He had a whole video and he made a whole skit about it. Oh, dear Marvel, you're an idiot for blah 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 blah. Blah. I forget what it was. He's a popular guy. I think it's Cinema Sins or one of them. And it's like, bro, like, are you serious, right? But it's
Oh
like,
wait, he wasn't joking.
no, he's dead serious.
Oh
Like, this is
wow.
before the movie came out. This is like about a month. This is like January. Like,
Okay,
I
okay.
think because Batman v Superman came out in March, I think.
Yeah, March
And then,
and this one, well, sorry, Civil War came out in early
it was
May.
a little later.
Yeah.
It was a little later, right? And yeah, so that's it. And it was just kind of a mess as it was. And it's a damn shame because again, if they just sit down, because again, if you were to tell me this on paper, like if Snyder, like if I was a fly on the wall and I can imagine Snyder and company pitching this to each other, I can imagine me nodding my head and thinking, yeah, boy, that's something real good, Judd, on paper. Because you had to justify. Because the classic question, like when you bring it together, the Justice League is, well, why does Superman need backup, right? It's Superman, right? You don't need any backup. Well, we're going to constantly fight Kryptonians, and these guys, none of these guys can keep up with the Kryptonians, right? So how you're going to make this work as it is? And then what we ultimately get is like, oh, well, with Batman with Superman, you're going to have to bring in other characters somehow, and then either figure out a way to have Superman be weakened, or well, hey, outright kill him. And that's the problem. They mix and match ideas that they could tell only on a producer end. This makes sense because the Death of Superman was this real big selling comic at the time. It's like, all right, well, you could bring that in, and that kind of makes some sense. It's like, no, yeah, you don't understand why these ideas don't come together or gel together particularly well. I thought how they handled the Death of Superman, and this is so bad and so stupid and completely spoil that. Like they could have absolutely nail that and make it work in for the DCU, and they completely fucked that up, and now they can't do it again. Like James Gunn can't do it, If James Gunn do it, he'll fuck it up because not because he won't make a powerful emotional scene, it's because well they already blew the load with this movie. So it's that I can't see how everybody had to literally forget that Batman v Superman exists, and then James Gunn had to do it. Like if you're going to do it at all, which I never thought was a good idea because that comic was kind of shit anyway. So whatever. I don't know. Like it is. We could talk how much about why Batman v Superman like don't work or why it didn't work, and it's one of those too much. I think it's one of those too much cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. At the same time, it's people who just wasn't fit with the solution, and then the main problem is them rushing, absolutely rushing, and Warner Brothers was just in a tight spot. Harry Potter was winding down. They didn't know what to do with Batman. They couldn't get other Superman projects off the ground. This fella did a great rundown, and he did I think what I thought was quite workable speculation as to why Warner Brothers was such in a situation to find itself rushing and putting out stuff. It's like, yeah, why didn't they do a Man of Steel 2? Why didn't they do this?
Well,
I keep
was it a movie, Bob? You're talking about?
yeah, Bob Chipman. Sorry,
Yeah.
They're trying to remember. And my thing is why they can get better creative forces for this. Why it is only movie people involved? Like to me, I keep asking the question. Yeah, where's Alan Burnett in all of this? Right? Like seriously, he's like a real good like world building guy. He working with DC and them since what the late 70s on cartoon projects or whatever it is. Right? So he could be the guy to come in. He's the main reason why a lot of the DCAU works so well. And well, we're getting to that last point of why it was so frustrating because to me it was right there. I thought it was right there. You had Nolan, you had the DCAU just ended, right? And I felt they could have easily mashed that together. I felt so. And it just didn't work together. Meanwhile, Marvel, which I don't think is perfect, the MCU is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and it started to slightly go off the rails because I didn't care for Age of Ultron all that much. They still kind of nail it with thing in terms of at least entertaining people though. I don't get waste of time getting into logic and some kind of hard logic of it because like, well, it's a silly superhero movie with a big purple spaceman with Lucky Charms on his hand, right? So like I don't really care about any of that. But just make it cogent. And they couldn't even do that. And the MCU just ended up going to become this massive success. And the DCU make some money, I suppose. I mean, ultimately, it's just like a kind of a cultural failure, and then the people who known for defending it is just like, branded as just effectively crazy people, right? And well, it had about a big overlap with actual real world politics as well, so that is a whole thing. But I don't know, like, I can't see in time this stuff could age well at all. Like, I'm hard pressed, but like, time will tell. Maybe I'm not sure. I don't think so. Right? We'll see what's going on with Gunn, and especially with this actual like who in charge of what now and what going on with Warner Brothers and who buying out who and whatnot. We'll see who would if how much people gonna lean their money into trying to make it happen. But that's to me a bad sign, right? Every time if you have to make something happen, especially with the Snyder cut, you saw this people just contriving themselves, and that's why I thought this movie ultimately don't really work. It don't work, and there's a bunch of weirdos who just defend it and prop it up. It's no different like talking to people who like believe in like flat earthers or younger creationism. Something it's a lot of money, but if the idea is bullshit, you ain't gonna save yourself anyway. You just look like an idiot in retrospect. Who will burn money on nonsense now, right? Compared to the cultural cachet that we MCU. And look, you could talk shit about the MCU now, but let us be clear: the only thing that derailed the MCU is stuff that was genuinely out of their control. Let's be clear about that. Two major events. The reason why the MCU in a mess now is because of COVID, one, and I would argue because of the passing of Chadwick Boseman, right? If Chadwick Boseman was still alive, they would have leaned everything on him and it would have worked, right? I think so. Genuinely think so because he's a star, and then his character is in such a way that he could be both kind of Captain America and Iron Man at the same time in any movie. So you could just put him in anything. Like he could just be the glue to pull that together, but unfortunately, he passed away. So I think those multitudes of events fall apart. That's the only reason people talking shit about the MCU now. If COVID didn't happen and or Chadwick Boseman was still alive, the MCU would still be, I think, strong. It'll still be strong, right? But real world shit happens, so sorry to see it. Meanwhile, the DCU just fall apart on its own thing. Like none of these movies come together, and they just get worse and worse as time going, and they just died. And then now they had to reboot the whole thing with James Gunn. Right? That's everything, right? Am I the only one? I don't know if I'm alone in that, right? So ever. That's me.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so when it comes to Civil War, I put that alongside Winter Soldier, right? Because I think that was like my number 5, right? That was my number 5 as far as top 10 of the 2010s, right? Yeah, because I think Civil War is just a great continuation of the Winter Soldier. Though it's not better than the Winter Soldier, but it still stands on its own, right? Even though it is technically Avengers 2.5 / Captain America 3. That's exactly what it is. Right. But even in that aspect, it shockingly works, right? Yeah. Anyway, when it comes to this episode, right, what we're going to do here basically, right? But yeah, just as a wrap up, the preamble, let's just say, right? So initially, the plan was to talk about Civil War, right? Because, it's the better film, right? But then something recently happened where in commemoration of the 10th anniversary of BVS, Zack Snyder said something, right? So I'm just paraphrasing here, right? But he was just basically kind of defending the fans of the show, right? But then also saying, oh, we were just, we were so cutting edge in terms of how we did this movie, and, people didn't like it then and they don't like it now. So he's basically like giving them the middle finger, like, oh, you didn't get, that's why it had so much hate, right? Like all the edgelordy stuff about it was totally justified, right? Like, oh, but this was something new and so different because you never saw a Superman movie like this, you never saw a Batman movie like this, and I did this. Like you are the progenitor of all of this, right? Acting as if this edgelordy effort that was made was meant to buck the system. You know what I mean? But yeah, you see what you had to say, and then I'll wrap things up. But yeah, go on.
So there's a difference between like the sheer belligerence of and look, I don't think Zack Snyder is some big right wing or anything like that, but it's just the sheer belligerence of that kind of thinking versus like when you want to do something weird on the left or unusual on the left, right? Compared to like people who try to defend, the new Star Trek that got cancelled. Like I like that show enough to like want more, but I ain't going like die on some hill for it. Meanwhile, Snyder fans now still died on the hill for this movie and the other movie, and
sorry to cut you, right? But dog, how you could do that to Starfleet Academy Dread 2 seasons that I don't get. Why do?
No, well, I mean, like I'm not surprised, and I don't think it's because of the quality of the show necessarily, but the show wasn't like the show wasn't some masterpiece either. Let's be clear about that. Like it's a show I liked enough to want more. Right, you could do something, you could potentially build from it. But again, you ain't gonna see him dying on a hill for the show, right? Compared to now, people who defending Snyder bullshit to the point where the Snyder cut was not real. They had to contrive it into reality. Let's be clear
Yes.
about that.
Of
At the
Justice
time,
League. I remember that.
it just had a thing, and they kind of give it money, and then they had to give it more money. But it's pure bullshit. They had to upsell you on it ahead of time, and a set of morons on the internet try to bullshit you about that. But it's like, whatever, that's how it is work. And they finally get the movie to get the vision, and then they want to act as if it's some big victory lap. And then the final product was even that good anyway. But there are people who act as if it's some big masterpiece. That is the difference. See that difference between one side who have nuance and the other side have no nuance and really don't give a shit and completely shameless. That's the difference. Right? You write the difference of people still defending Batman v Superman and will say any nonsense. These people are no different from flat earthers. I am sorry. But that's it. Right? Until you yourself become as uncharitable and strict towards this kind of stuff and willing to die on the hill, you'll always lose. Because now fight you're willing to fight. It's just, as I say, it's not about the size of the dog, but the dog, whether the fight of the dog, whether it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, but the fight of the dog, right? That's it, right? You could be the most moronic moron who talking as a bullshit, but if you keep sticking in the fight and keep showing up, that's it. And that's the difference. Like, the Snyder Cult fans never really had a leg to stand on in any meaningful way, but they belligerent and it's all about triggering the libs or whatever it is, and it's just that. It's just, sorry to say, do not underestimate spite, right? That's the trick, right? This is why conservative evangelical crap stay in the American public line for so long. Or why is that the Civil War? A set of women. Civil War done, ages, but a set of women bring it back. Daughters of the Confederacy, because they ain't letting that go. Right? It's how a set of people who just don't let shit go.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right.
They get mad about you not liking the shit, and you get them mad, and they stay mad, right? For however long. And they either make you at least get some kind of revenge or go to the grave staying mad. That's the difference. It's just a selection pressure. Right? That's how I feel about this stuff. And yeah, that's how I feel about like Batman and Superman. That's why I don't waste my time talking to people about it, because it's not even like a debate to have. Right? If you'll win 9 out of 10 times. Or if they get a little talking point once, they'll treat that as if they win all over. How Batman v Superman defenders is like, that meme with the guy real celebrating. There's a meme with a guy real celebrating with a medal. He have like a medal and he real celebrated, and then when they cut to the wider picture, he's like 10th place.
Oh shit.
and all the other people above just kind of like watching it with a normal face. That's what it feel like. It's feel like that. It's like, oh, like this movie wasn't that great. I'd like you can serious.
Yeah.
But people come down on the movie too hard and they insult it too much and they don't like it, and so they're mad about it. Somebody else has a great video about this. Shout out to this dude. He's always have like really good takes. Pargrin or whatever it is. Jason Pargin, I think. He have like really fun books, and he have like some good takes on TikTok content. Made a great video about the idea that it have a lot of people. If you like something, and it's not only to like something, but that liked thing has to be normalized. That's how people just get mad about like other options in a thing, because now it's not people have that zero sum thinking in our winner. So if you have those other options, the mere fact the other options exist, probably say, oh well, that means my belief's not normal, and if my belief's not completely normal, you're gonna react in a bad way, And that's how a lot of people was with the Snyder stuff. When Snyder started, you could tell it had a couple people who was like real hype for this and trying to make something out of it, and then because everybody wasn't with them and they wasn't hyping up the crowd, they was like, how do you feel about this? It's not that people necessarily hated the movie. Like, let's be clear, people hated the movie. But even if people was tepid on the movie, they still would have like react badly. Like, I remember like watching Man of Steel. It had this one guy in the crowd trying to hype up himself. And like, well, bro, the movie is not great though. Like,
wait.
But
if you don't mind me asking, for what scene? For what scene?
Like multiple action scenes, but in the beginning. And then it had a couple moments, like when Clark said maybe. No, sorry, not when Clark went say, when Jonathan Kent said maybe, and some people started laughing in the audience. You could tell he kind of had a feel of how that that man get real quiet over the night. This was in IMAX. It's stuff like that. They have a bunch of people like that. And then you remember when we went to see Batman v Superman, it had this one guy in the audience pumping a fist in the air.
Yes, I remember that.
Like, Roger, fucking sit down there. What the hell, Dread? And then when people started laughing at the matter thing, it started to become kind of tense to the audience. It's that. It's still that. A lot of people just put their fucking ego in this shit. Let's be clear. I just kind of put my ego in somebody's shit. Like, let's be clear. Like, I have a bunch of things I put my ego into, right, as well, right? It's not some mainstream like this, but like little things like me defending Bleach, for example. I just find myself defending Bleach more than others, right? Because it's got a bad rap. But like, yeah, it's not my story. It are too big for this nonsense now. But it's the same thing. It's that, right? I'm not gonna have an effing meltdown but it's more like, oh yeah, you don't take into account that people just think about things differently in this way, and it's a totally different psychology. The same reason why people defend science. A whole bunch of people defend science, and then when you talk to them about why they defend science, well, you know, it's really about this, not about that. Like, what? We talking about? You watch the same movie I watch? It's a whole different worldview. And that's that's the whole thing about this. Like, it's people coming from a vastly different worldview, and it's something that just, for lack of a better word, incommensurable. You can't measure it to my worldview because we're not talking about the same movie, right? You have a different mindset, and we're just going to leave it at that. And look, if you want to believe bullshit, and I think you believe bullshit, let's be clear, is again, I have no problem putting it in the same conspiracy theory, flat earth, younger creationist camp of type of persons. Like, it's not, and I wouldn't even like try to say, well, you're not a good fan or you don't understand film or anything like that. But one of the things that driving this, let's be clear, is your belligerence. There's a recalcitrance at the heart of this, right? That's the only reason. They think that they're fighting against the world, and they like that struggle narrative. Well, a lot of people like that. It's really feel like that. And then on the other side, like, well, people like me who kind of tepidly progressive, I wouldn't fight to the death for my thing. It's like, oh, it get cancelled, and okay, that sucks. I wish, we could do something different. But like, it have other world grander systemic reasons why you get thing. I ain't gonna cry about it. But you'll see the only people making the noise about telling people oh they'll cry about it is not them, is the other people. It's like, all right, well, that don't happen. But you can't have a normal conversation. And yeah, so for whatever reason, it's impossible to have a normal conversation about Batman v Superman because either a person will try to be shitty about it, or you'll have a attitude about it. And then when you jump back on them, they get angry because you insult them about it. I remember like one of the most toxic arguments I had, not necessarily over Batman v Superman, but it's kind of like that, where I remember talking about how bad it was, and then somebody tried to like middle wrong me about it and started to tell me about, they basically tell me that I need to watch more movies. Like, is that dismissive bullshit? And then I tell them, I kind of insult them in a certain way, and then they come back and tell me, well, how come you have such a, I don't see the big problem about why this movie is so bad and so on and so on. And then I just respond to them, watch more movies, right? Being as shitty and dismissive as they were. And then somebody else jump in the comments and to tell me, well, you shouldn't say that and so on and so on. Yeah, but his first response is to be that dismissive asshole.
Mm-hmm.
That's the asymmetry. You see that? That is the asymmetry in a lot of these conversations. Again, I'm sorry to go aside, but it's one of these things that end up spiraling. Star Wars in last year, there was the other one too, where you had these super toxic discussions, and only me as not a Star Wars fan seeing it from the outside, like, oh yeah, right, I see the same thing kind of happening again. It's just these weirdos who just like absolutely blow it. And I don't waste my time again these arguments. My thing is that what make money, right? Yep. I know making money is not the end game for it. Because like we call him Michael Bay make a bunch of money, and I don't like his movies. But to me, if using, but they're usually the crowd who would make the most money. Because let's be clear, if Batman v Superman did make money, and let's be clear, if Batman v Superman had an okay script, it would have made Avengers money because it's Batman and Superman, right? If it didn't make the money, we wouldn't be having this discussion. This is one of those things that are impossible to debate because a lot of people like bring the ego into it for some reason, especially with Superman, right? Like, I'm not some hardcore Superman fan, and I'm not so mad at it, but I just felt they just, to me, what I consider a massive squandering of an opportunity. And you're engaging into nonsense debates and there's a sort of bad faith crap, And yeah, I couldn't get into it. And this movie that started bullshit. I don't know. It really started with this, I find. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it did, right? So, a few things here, right? Because this preamble is, going long, right? But, we just have a lot to say about this, right? Well, a lot to say about these two shows, in particular BVS, right? So here's the thing, right? It dawned on me, right, after I saw that article, right, that Civil War actually told a better BVS-like story than BVS itself. And that served as the inspiration for this special retrospect review that we're going to jump into right now, right? So it was recommended by, a colleague of ours, so shout out to CC Lilford for this, for doing this review here in sections, this retrospect review in sections, right? Because this is technically going to be like a comparison, like a compare and contrast basically with these two films, right? Basically to say that, Civil War is a better BVS than BVS is, right? So as far as the structure goes to this, right, we're going to do this in 5 chapters, right? So, because it's about the main event, the fight itself, right? So, chapter 1 is going to be the background in terms of like, oh, this is the setup. This is what's going to happen, right? Chapter 2, storyline. Chapter 3, preliminary matches. Chapter 4, the main event. Chapter 5, aftermath, right? So we're gonna start things off with BVS. I watched the Ultimate Edition for this, right? And yes, because we have to talk about the background and we basically have to we basically have to summarize the whole movie. Yes, I will be summarizing the movie, right? But I'm gonna move as fast as I can. Of course, Ricardo, you can interject here, right? So, chapter 1, background, right? So yes, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is the second film in the DCU. First one was, of course, Man of Steel, right? It actually starts off pretty strong though with the flashback / dream sequence where you see Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed. I mean, yes, we've seen this done numerous times, but the
Right.
Snyder way, the way it's done, actually works, right? Very stylized and the slow mo. Zack is a man who loves slow mo, right? But yeah, this moment actually works, right? And then how it cuts to Bruce as a kid, running away from the funeral and then dropping into the pit, and then the bats kind of swarm over him, right? And I do like that moment where you see he rises, like he literally rises, and the bats are swirling over him.
Right.
That's a cool visual moment. Like that actually works, right? And then
As I say, when you watch this movie, if you watch this movie by just trailers and clips, you would think this is some kind of masterpiece. Because till to this day, I think the Batman v Superman trailer, the Comic Con trailer especially, is great. Like the couple of trailers that came out before.
I will never forget seeing that. I think it was on a Saturday afternoon, boy. And I was just so excited by this. I think this was the trailer that we talked about on BS Beats and Bailey. Yeah.
Right, no. Like that oh god, I forget the guy's name, it's slipping my Nerd Writer. That's his name, I think. He has a scene called Scenes versus Moments, right? He talk about that, and he's why Batman v Superman, the fundamental flaw in the movie. I thought this guy nailed it. If you watch this movie, just random clips on the internet, wherever it is, you'll think, oh, this is some real good movie. But when the actual final product comes together, it's so weird. No. This is one of those scenes. It's a good opening scene, I think. And they get two people who I thought would have been in the DCU going forward, which is two people from Walking Dead, right? As Martha and Thomas Wayne.
Yes. Negan of all people, playing.
Yeah. But what I thought it was gonna do is I thought it was gonna do the Flashpoint thing and have them be Batman and Joker in the Flashpoint. That's what happened in that. No. I thought that was gonna happen. It's like, oh shit, that's gonna be hard because like in Flashpoint, Bruce dies instead, and Thomas becomes a Batman-like figure. I think he's called Batman still, and Joker is Martha Wayne. I'm like, oh shit, that's like a cool twister. I thought that is what he was going with, with the alternate timeline stuff or something like that. Nope. Yeah, we don't get any of that. We just get some lame crap. Whatever, moving on.
Yeah, moving on, right? And I actually do like this is technically the inciting incident, right? Where you see, the moment that takes place during the climactic fight scene in Man of Steel, right? I actually was reminded, I actually love that text reveal, that Metropolis, mankind is introduced to the Superman. Right. I love that. There's something very Watchmen about that. Very Dr. Manhattan about it,
Moments versus scenes. Again, this is an okay opening as an idea. Now, a lot of people make a classic argument that if this movie had no Batman in it, it would have worked. Because the Batman part kind of distract. So if you just replace Batman's arc with Lex Luthor's arc, it could have worked as a Man of Steel 2. Same idea. Man of Steel 2 and they just have Lex in the same position as Batman or something like that. It could have probably worked as just a Man of Steel 2, and it's the same movie, exact same movie, but not the convoluted nonsense involving Lex Luthor's plan. It's just Batman on an arc to destroy Superman because he have this perspective of power and power dynamic. All this is good stuff. Again, as they say something nice, right? Yeah. All this is fine. We're going good so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about Batman's plan to go after Superman later on, right? But right. Yeah, I mean this inciting incident is still holds up. Just the tension of it too. I love that it's centered on the whole world engine and destroying stuff, and then of course you fight with Superman and Zod, and then the destruction of the Wayne Enterprises building, and you have that moment where you see Bruce running into the smoke. All that works. All that works. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great setup and legit a powerful moment in the film, right?
And the whole 9/11 imagery stuff. I know a lot of people thought that was in poor taste, but I thought it made sense at the time.
It does. It does.
If you're gonna play with the conceit, do it well now and make with that conceit. And for the most part, I think Snyder does a good job with that. He has a good sense of space. But again, when I talk about Snyder, ultimately I do defend him as a filmmaker. Let's be clear about that, right? Because I always tend to understand he had a good sense of space and direction. He's one of those guys, especially in Man of Steel. Why I still defend Man of Steel to this day is that he switch the it's called the 180 rule in terms of angular momentum of movement and still give you a sense of what happening.
Yeah.
He's do that a lot and it still works.
Mhm.
That's a sign of a very skilled filmmaker.
Yeah,
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
And in this, you get that. It's like, oh shit, the stuff moving around in real wild ways though.
Yeah.
And then they cut it and then they cut back on Bruce Wayne in this perspective, but you had to run and because you're getting a sense of, urgency now. They make it work. Good scene.
Yeah, I mean, great setup there, right? Know that, right? So, chapter 2,
Yeah.
storyline, right? So, now the story officially begins, right? So, year and a half later, we introduced to Lois Lane, once again played by Amy Adams, right? She's on assignment to investigate this thing in Nairobi, which had to find out was actually a fictional African country. So, it's part of DC law. I didn't even know that till, I rewatched this film, right?
Yeah, they do that all the time. They always make a fake country. That's the thing with DC. DC always had this kind of weird, interesting world building where they won't, unless they need to do something, they'll almost never have a real city. It's always a fake city, but the fake city is kind of close to the real city. Because it was getting harder and harder to do this as the world get more modern. But the Marvel in general never really did that. They had to either you make it up a fictional location entirely, but you won't make up just a city. They'll just be oh, okay, this is a thing. And you have the characters in New York City. Okay, Gotham, it depends, but Gotham is usually in New York City. It's supposed to be New Jersey, but it's just a city in New York State. There's not any recent Joker movie, no?
Right.
Where it's just a city in New York State. But it's not a place, a real place, just a fictional city. DC always did that. Whatever, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Yeah, so this is with regards to this warlord that getting yourself into some trouble, right? So keep in mind, folks, this is the ultimate edition I talk about here, right? So yeah, Gil is introduced to Jimmy.
Yeah, the crack started. This was the beginning of the bullshit.
Listen, about 3 minutes after this man got introduced, they reveal that he's a CIA agent, and then one of the warlord men make him out now. One shot to your blow. And I'm gonna call this "so that happened." That is one of those "so that happened" moments. Oh, okay, so no more Jimmy. Okay, all right. I just move on, right? Yeah, but anyway,
I think okay. So here's the thing. This doesn't piss me off that much, but I can imagine if it will piss you off, because this is supposed to be Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, and in this universe, you don't never even get to know who Jimmy is. Come on,
man.
You know he is, and then it's Superman's pal. Jimmy's a character who's supposed to be central to Superman in many ways.
Yeah.
He introduced a lot of characters and whatnot. He's a big character from the beginning, and I just feel it really come across like edgelord bullshit. I
kind of mean spirited too, though, especially because I'm not a big Jimmy fan, right? But I know a lot of people are, right? Yeah, especially his significance in Superman lore, right?
Yeah, as I said, I'm not a super again. I'm not married to this idea. Okay, you're doing this, but it had to mean something, and that's my problem. That is the problem with these. And I forget who made this point. I think it's Bob Chip, but he can make this point about this. Look,
he did because it had one part where he mentioned Jimmy's death, and he was like, "Fuck you, fuck you."
Yeah. I was that's our point. That's our point. My thing is that if you're doing something edgy, it had to have a point. You're just doing this just to say you do it now. And that's my problem with this. Is that it's edginess without any actual subversiveness. No? Nothing interesting about what you do there. Let's kill a famous character.
But there's no reason why you do that, right? But anyway.
Yeah. So just to say that you do it.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. So Superman show up to save Lois from the warlord, right? So apparently, between Man of Steel and now, Superman really learned to embrace his killer side, right? Because with all the debate that the meltdown the internet meltdown, that people had with him snapping Zod's neck, right? Yeah, in this case, he just watched the warlord and literally spears him through the wall, and we'll never see him again at that point in time. I watched the scene again. I'm but why they didn't follow up? What was that? What?
You ever think of that? That did not make the case for all much people who was defending Clark and he had to kill a man and he didn't need to kill Zod and so and so. And I never defend that. I thought he didn't need to kill Zod. He could have come up with something better. At least the scene, how they frame the scene is poorly framed. But in this now, He just straight up killed that man. I was like, well, but I did that do. Like that argument done there because that helping Clark case at all.
Yeah.
And that cracked me up, eh? That just I legit laugh at that dude when I first saw it.
And listen, like looking back at the scene now, it makes no sense for the character of Superman, right? Because I understand
Right.
you want to save Lois, right? Okay, but it's a friggin'
No.
human being that you spare, no.
Yeah, wash out. Straight wash out.
If say if this was Invincible, for example, that Waller would have been split in half, right? But anyway,
Right, exactly.
so again, we stick with the Ultimate Edition, right? I forget that Miguel Wunmi Mozaku was in this.
Right.
I didn't even
This
know that. I
This
was
is
like,
kind of the first big movie I know her from off the top of my head. I was
Yeah,
trying to think of what she was before
because
this.
I remember I thought the first time I saw her was her Hausner, the horror film, from Netflix, right? Yeah, I thought that was the first time I saw her. I didn't know that she was in this version, right?
she's I'm trying to think of what she was in before this off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember. But I think that's the first movie I know her from. Off the top of my head. Just
but
think about it. I can't remember.
I honestly forgot that she was in this movie, right? But she's one of the villagers. She comes to testify in U.S. court,
Right.
saying, Superman caused the soldiers to sort of kill people and blah blah blah, right? And that's when we introduced to Senator June Finch, who's played by Holly Hunter, right? It's Holly Hunter, right? Yeah, right. Holly Hunter, right?
Yeah.
So she basically saying, it's Superman's fault and he caused all this death and all that kind of stuff, right? What's so funny in retrospect, though, is that James Gunn's Superman addressed the whole idea of Superman going into a foreign country and doing things, with the intent of saving the people, and then that blew up, right? That fell apart, right? Did a much better job at that conceit, though.
Yeah. So here's the thing with this. This is where the movie started to fall off the rails for me. Well, two things. The theatrical cut. This whole sequence will make a lick of sense to me in the theatrical cut. In the Snyder cut, in the director's cut, it make a little more sense because the main thing is that they just shoot people, and it's like, well, if they just shoot people, why would anybody think it's Superman kill them? But in the Snyder cut, in the director's cut, they use flamethrowers to make it look like it's heat vision. Apparently, right? It's still nonsense. But it at least goes from incredibly incoherent to just kind of stupid. So that's how it changes a bunch of stuff.
Anyway, what's so funny? I didn't pick up on that flamethrower scene until you mentioned that, because I saw it, but I didn't know that was the reason why they do that.
Remember the whole thing was just to kind of frame Superman up and to make him look bad. Like, oh well, he come in and he kill a set of people, and then
but
this
they didn't
woman
frame it properly because I didn't pick up on it.
The whole thing is clumsy. And here's what I don't like about this. And to me, again, you already had something in Man of Steel to make it work. The actual destruction of Metropolis. Like, who gonna buy Superman's story as it is? Exactly, because nobody knew what happened in all that chaos. You could have easily sell that argument against Superman and build from that properly. We didn't get that. We just get this new story involving a random African country. Like, all right, I mean, if you say so. But I find this whole thing was super clumsy. Again, intent and ideas over execution. Execution is terrible.
Yeah.
And that fella's what, KGBs, I think? Like, oh, that's KGBs? Why? Why is
Okay,
KGBs?
yeah, I don't know, right? So speaking about intent versus execution, right? So there's this running subplot with Clark Kent, right? Daily Planet Clark Kent, right? Investigating, Batman and what he doing in with branding criminals, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a moment, right? I had to spoil this, right? Well, I mean, we're doing spoilers anyway, right? So whatever, right? So there's a moment where Perry, right, talking about Batman's reign of terror, right? So he starts off by calling him Bat Vigilante, right? And literally halfway into the movie, he calls him Batman, right? And then there's a convo scene with Bruce and Alfred, right? And I mean, I'm not gonna say that Jeremy Irons is the best Alfred we ever gotten, but yeah, he was one of the best characters in this movie.
I actually like Jeremy Irons in this.
Me too.
It's a shame again. It's a shame that we can get more, but what make that whole thing kind of annoying? Here's what's dumb about this. Two things. They keep bringing up, for some reason, Perry want Clark to cover some fucking football game for some reason.
Yeah.
But you sending your top journalist to send a cover football game? Like, who does do that? Like, what that makes sense? And then on top of that, if the whole thing is about selling papers, right? Oh, here's a dumb thing that I hate, right? The whole Metropolis and Gotham next to each other, I hate it. I never like that, right? To me, they should be far from each other, right? The rule of thumb is Metropolis is somewhere in New York or LA, and Gotham should be like Chicago, wherever it is. It should be like half a country at a cover, wherever. But if it's such an easy, casual thing, why dumb is like Superman should be protecting both cities, right? Whatever.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah,
my
yeah,
point
when you
is-
think about it, right?
Yeah, whatever. But the point is, if the whole thing is that this paper is supposed to be this struggling, fledgling paper, then where exactly you're covering supposed to be covering? That's supposed to be this big thing. And the Bat Vigilante story wouldn't be like a big selling headline other than Superman.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
But-
I never like this. I never like this beat, and Perry didn't make a lick of sense in this movie in that sense. Like whatever.
Exactly, right? But the thing that catch me, right, is that later on, he went from Bat Vigilante to Batman, right? Then you have this convo scene with Jeremy Irons. Well, you know, what I was going to say about Alfred, Jeremy Irons' portrayal of it, right? I love how cynical he is, but he's cynical because of how Bruce acts. Like, oh, you know, you still doing this. You still, like, beating people up and justified it, right?
Right.
Haha, right? It works. It absolutely works, right?
No, and they
But-
set up some good beats. The whole, you know, he kind of he's a drunk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He kinda,
Like,
he's running out, and then he basically just burning out the Wayne fortune on this nonsense.
exactly.
You know, not sure, and like all these little small things like
Yeah.
that just kind of grating on Alfred now over time now. Because
Like-
like he had no control of the money in that sense, but you know he should. And you know if he were a little more responsible with it, they play with that well with when Nolan did the Batman as well. That back and forth of how much wealth he should be burning, how irresponsible he are. Because ultimately, yeah, he's just a derelict person. No? Like he just effectively what's it called? Gosh, I forget the word slipping my mind, but basically he just you know destructive now and just going spiraling down now.
Mm.
And you don't know how bad it get until a certain point in the storyline. It's like, okay, that's a good beat, bad execution, but still an okay beat.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, in one of those scenes, they mention that Batman has been doing this for 20 years, right?
Right.
Keep a note
Right,
of
they
that,
should-
right? 20 years
should
he
rob-
doing this shit, right?
Yeah, they show the Robin thing.
Right.
Right.
So why now is Perry acting as if he never heard the word Batman before in his life? Why you calling him
Well, that's the
Bat Vigilante?
No, right. So here's the thing, right? So they keep playing with this already. You see, the problem with the 20 years thing is a little too much time for that. In my humble opinion, I agree with this. Where they're doing the whole Batman is Sasquatch thing, right? The Batman is the Bigfoot. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a new thing people say. But the problem with that is that a little too much time passed. You trying to tell me nobody'd verify whether or not Batman exists after all this time? That is a little too much time. That is a little ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
somebody, like a certain like reporter from Metropolis who right there in the other city, that could be a scoop for her
You
ages
know?
ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You try and tell me that? Like that's my problem. The 20 years thing, you see, don't mix. Now I see again, if Gotham and Metropolis were far from each other, I could have let it slide. It's like, oh well, you know, it's something quite across there in this city. I don't want to travel. But we see Lois travel across the world, do all this investigative journalism in the first movie. And you try and tell me before Superman show up, she can do that before?
You know? And
With
and,
Batman
and,
and
and
verify
listen,
whether or not Batman exists? Come on.
and listen,
That's real time.
and all this is bad writing, folks, right? But we're not going to spend too much time on this,
it's
right?
not like, Batman is not a state secret, you know. It's not like the government will cover it up and thing. And we know she just talked to people high up in the government because she was doing that with this dumb bullet mystery crap with the African thing.
Yeah, this subplot that was going nowhere, right? But this last point about the whole thing with Batman, right?
Yeah, right.
So suddenly out of the blue, right? You know, he getting people in Gotham scared, right? Because he branding people now, right? And then when these branded people go into jail, they getting shanked, right? And all that kind of stuff, right? So now the movie acted as if, like Batman knew on the scene and he's a menace all of a sudden, right? But then later on they tell me he doing this shit for 20 years, right? So now that he get more edgelordy now he's a problem to the point now that Perry had to send, talking about it now, and then Clark, for whatever reason, is now inspired to go into Gotham now and investigate this because he don't understand why Batman doing all of this. Bad writing, folks. That's all I have to say.
So this is clumsy. Clumsy's being charitable because again, if he's supposed to be sorting this out, 20 years is too much time, as you mentioned. But again, if you're saying that you people who know about this in the Gotham dumps, you got the guy, I forget the guy, he had the scratch ticket and was talking about.
I forgot the actor's name, but yeah. That person.
It's like this boy General Dread boy, the badass. Oh, by the way, there's another thing, eh? That opening sequence with Batman is great. Like the whole with the cop with the shotgun. Great scene.
I will talk about that. I'll talk about that later.
Moments versus scenes, right? Great moment.
Yeah.
Yes, totally don't fit in a movie. What frustrating about this whole Batman thing is that all of his Batman stuff was completely wasted in this movie. As I said, you could have rewritten this movie and just, to me, cut Batman out almost entirely. Cut all the fat and just make it about Lex Luthor's narrative. Don't have Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Get somebody else. In fact, freaking take it and play Lex Luthor and just shave his head. We call him Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck can shave his head and be Lex Luthor. Like they can do that, and I sure we'd get a better movie.
No, you put in the picture of a bald Ben Affleck in my head, Joe. Why do that for?
Right. You get my point, right? Like it's just they had to, I don't know, they're spinning too many plates and just none of it working in my opinion.
Right.
But yeah, this whole stuff with the 20 years thing was a problem for me because like what you fucking serious? Like what
because
even if it's not Lewis, it had to be you trying to be this big super newspaper who just have a one city across, you just had across a river. It right there, right? Don't know about this Bat Vigilante going on for 20 years. That's a little ridiculous.
Exactly. So speaking of Lex, right? I no disrespect to Jesse Eisenberg, right? Great actor, great writer, great director. I mean, a real pain, right? Love that film, right? He's the worst Lex Luthor ever. He's the worst character in this movie, period, right? But
somebody pointed out that I forget who pointed out, but basically they feel like they wrote two characters and they just wrote them as one character. Somebody say it's Lex and Joker.
It's Lex and Joker. That's what movie Bob said because he have these weird kind of these kind of autistic kind of quips. He's be like,
I don't know why he's like that. Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And then like he have little character development because all of a sudden he have this hang up with God and he compared that to how his father used to beat him up and what point that movie Bob make, right? And it actually make he was correct. They never established what LexCorp actually does. This man just hiring people to go to the friggin' Indian Ocean to get like this kryptonite, right? But like what does Lex do? What does Lex do really?
So there's one thing that bothered the hell out of me. So in Man of Steel, I actually like what is set up with what was implied to be kryptonite. That kryptonite is a holistic thing, right? Get rid of the green rock. But I always believe you should get rid of the green rock entirely. I always thought the green rock was a clumsy plot device. Come up with something that you could kind of weaken Superman with and make it more like a mix between red sun and kryptonite. So it's like, well, something like a red sun or you're changing the environment will make it more a problem for Superman. Nothing specific. Do that. And what they did that in Man of Steel, right? In Man of Steel, he went on his ship, he started to get sick, and it's a holism kind of thing where the environment affected him in a general way. That's why the whole world engine thing was fucking him up. Love it. I thought that was a great way. And then they turn around and just make it a green rock again. I'm like, oh God. But they're going back to this. Moving on.
Moving on, right? So and he have this plan because he actually brings up meta-human for the first time ever in the DC, right? So his thing is that, we can't have these superpowered people trying to take down us humans, so we must be more powerful than them. So he hatched this plan, he get Zod's ship, he get Zod body, but he need the kryptonite to be shipped to Gotham, right? So that's why he hook up with Senator Finch, right?
Right, so there's a big missed opportunity, and I felt what's her name should have shown up in this movie, Amanda Waller, because again, you're setting up a conceit. Now, in my humble opinion, they already did this really well, and I still, for me, outside of the comics, I still consider this the high watermark of DC material, the Kadma Sobak in Justice League, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why you see, you have because it totally nailing the whole post 9/11 war on terror paranoia about power. When them Kryptonians show up, everybody started to shit their pants, rightfully so.
Right.
So you had to figure out a way to equalize that or battle for that or counter that, right? You're paranoid about superpowered aliens. These guys, you see what these guys could do.
Listen.
So it's like you gotta come
in the Avengers, right? That was Nick Fury's MO. It's like, shit happened in Thor. Shit happened in Iron Man. No, sorry, shit happened in Thor. Now we got to be prepared for that shit.
Right, and it's the whole post 9/11 aspect of it, right? You're like, these guys capable of this now. All right, we can't believe that could happen, and it catch everybody off guard. So it's time for us to effectively buck up now and get serious, right? That's what it was. Both sides, and it's this whole. And look, they directly allude to to that thing with Batman, where Batman just gets super paranoid about that, and he straight up use a line that one of the Bush administration people use the 1% chance line. Like straight up.
All right. That 1%
either Dick Cheney or Donald Trump, tell whoever it is.
Okay, I didn't even know that, but yeah.
Yeah. And I get it. So I get where he pulling from. You're pulling from 9/11. You're doing that. I get it, but. There's an intent of execution.
Right.
Lex Luthor, I hate him in this. Like, he does not work in this at all.
No.
I don't care for it. I don't care for it at all. And none of it does come across as medicine. They didn't do anything interesting with it. And then the big reveal was just, again, we could get into that aspect of if it works or not, but the whole thing is a mess.
Okay, so right, so let's talk about the well, basically Lex hosts this event, right? So Bruce is going. He goes it because he hear about this Russian terrorist, right? Anatoly is his name, right? He's supposed to be smuggling in some dirty bomb, right? But we don't know anything else about that, right? So he goes in, right? Clark now going to report an event and all that kind of stuff, right? So this is where we are introduced to Diana, right? AKA Wonder Woman, right? And I love the fact how the movie acts as if we should know who she is, right? Even though that second trailer pretty much let us know, hey, Gal Gadot is playing Wonder Woman, right? But whatever, right?
They spoil it. Listen, I would have probably guessed this one way or the other, but it don't know why they spoiled it so long ago, Dread. Again, because you start seeing it post or something. I think they show up in the trailer. They should keep this quiet, Dread. Well,
Yeah,
moving on.
but the way how the movie teases, oh, is she really Wonder Woman? It's like, yes, bitch,
Right.
we know.
Yeah.
But anyway, right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
No, I will
But
not
they
lie.
clearly designed the movie for that to be a surprise. That's the problem. Another thing is that they've had some real crappy editing with this scene. Like I don't know if it's the blocking or the editing. There's a part that just kind of annoyed the hell out of me where she steal the thing before Batman, right?
Mhm.
Now all you had to do to make it work a little better is just see Batman just see her foot walk away. No, the camera turns to her. She stands looking like if she miss she call. She then turns around and start walking, and then Batman start following her, as if she watching Batman to see if he see what he want her to chase her. I can follow that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
So clumsy. And what does she want to talk to him
Yeah.
or whatever it is? But again, what is revealed later is it doesn't communicate that information at all. It is very stupid.
Yeah, but you'll get to that flash. I've seen that bit, right? So no lie, right? The little conversation that Bruce have with Clark is really, really good, though. Because Clark. That's so because Clark talk about it got him. Batman gets away with branding people, blah blah. And then Bruce is like, all they celebrated this alien who have the power to pretty much destroy all of humanity, right? Yeah, it's bickering and it's fighting words, I get, right? But like as a first time confrontation, that actually works, right? But here's the thing, Here's the thing, Ricardo. Wait for it, Ricardo. Wait for it. And then the movie had the goal to telegraph the fight that coming up, right? And Lex's involvement in it all, right? When he says, Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. I love it. I love bringing people together. And then when they get to the blocking, now you see, Bruce, sorry, you see Clark on the left, Bruce on the right, in the right, sorry,
Right, I get
and
the
Lex in the middle. I like really, Zach.
It's fine.
You're selling out the conceit right there, Dread. It should be a surprise, bro. Why?
I do not mind this. I do not mind this. It's foreshadowing. It is foreshadowing. Who cares? I don't really care. Here's the problem.
It is too. It's too blatant. Like it's like you're reading and spelling it out to people.
I don't mind that kind of foreshadowing, wherever.
Sure.
Yes, it obviously states blah blah blah. I don't really care. Here's the problem. One, Henry Cavill is terrible in this scene. He is shockingly flat in this scene. Oh my god. Lemon line reads why terrible. Whatever.
No. Ben outshines him, and you really feel Ben's intensity in that scene.
Ben is okay.
Yeah.
Even Lex is okay. Like I don't mind, but I don't know. But Henry Cavill was just terrible in this. That's one. Two. Who knows who Clark Kent is? He's not a popular person. For Lex to come in and say Clark Kent versus Bruce Wayne, like what?
He started working as a year and a half, dog. He working in the Daily Planet Dread.
And it sells out. Here's what it sells out in a dumb way. No, I don't mind foreshadowing, but here's what it sells out in a dumb way. It obviously sells out that Lex knows who Superman is. Duh. Because he referencing Clark Kent. Like, why would he give a shit? It's not like Clark is some popular journalist and he constantly criticizing, the powers that be or anything like that. No, nobody know the fuck Clark is in this universe. Or at least I don't get the sense that they should know. So whatever, you see, it's a mess. It's stuff like this that's the problem with this. It's failed from a theory of mind. It's a total failure theory of mind. It making the assumption that you know who Clark Kent is, so therefore he must be popular. But in this universe, it's not established that he's a popular person. Superman is a popular person, kind of, right? But does Clark Kent a popular person? Not in any meaningful sense.
And listen,
he wasn't working
in Man of Steel, the very end of Man of Steel, he was hired.
He was just hired. How much time passed? A little bit of time. You're dumb.
Listen, so even dumber than that, right? I'm not even going to stay long in this, because we have much more to talk about, right? But I will never forget, seeing this scene for the first time, right? But this is what I'm going to call the Justice League, the Snyder Cut dream sequence / vision moment, right? This is where
Okay, yeah,
Batman see himself in like this Mad Max kind of thing,
yeah, that
and
crap,
is
That
dark
goes,
side Vader and all that kind of stuff, and Superman
yeah,
gone bad and killing people off, right? Is the moment where I was reminded of this, I get pissed off, eh? So, we all see this and we all tell ourselves it's a dream, right? So Bruce wakes up, right? And this is when
right.
he gets back the flash drive that he was using to.
He wakes up twice.
That's what I was gonna say. He wake up twice,
Wake
Jed,
up
like
twice.
really movie. It's 2016, Jed. This is not like this is not Jaws the Revenge, though. We don't do scenes with characters waking up twice. What the fuck is that?
I couldn't follow a look at this because it's like so Flash goes back in time to talk to him, but then that feels like a dream too. And I was thinking, wait, the only thing this would make sense if somebody beamed this into your mind. So there's some kind of way to beam into your mind. Now we learn later apparently Martian Manhunter was around who could read thoughts, but then that's a whole other clumsy thing. Yes, for this to make sense, here's the thing, right? For this to make sense, and this is why I absolutely hate when people like to do this bullshit. When they basically do the whole we call it well, they were secretly doing this in the background, and they have to come and fill in a bunch of nonsense that feels like an intuitive thing now. And again, if you have a different worldview and you think about the world in a different way, it might make some sense, right? But because it don't make any sense from what the story is trying to tell you, it don't flow well. So unless Martian Manhunter was behind the scenes already playing them games with the bullet mystery as well to do something, because he could have just like tell Lois and figure out the crime immediately instead of blowing up a set of people in that building. You get the point? Because Martian Manhunter supposed to be all here, right? That's General Swalwell, apparently.
Yeah,
I don't know when he was replaced, or was he replaced with somebody else and General Swalwell somewhere else. Don't know. Zack Snyder didn't think about it because it's bullshit. Sorry. The simplest answer that this is bullshit and they didn't think of this ahead of time. It's stuff like that. So what? Flash show up and then Martian Manhunter beam that dream into his head the second time around? Like, where that information come from?
Makes any sense. And looking back at it now, right? Even though it's meant to tease what we're supposed to get in Justice League itself, right? That whole stuff that he talk about, it's Lois, she's the key, he too soon. Right. You're right about him. You've always been right about him. Fear him. Find us. What does that even mean, Jed? I'll close this, right? Yep. When we saw this in IMAX, this is a theatrical cut. I said this out loud. I didn't yell it out. I just said this out loud. The fuck was that? Like, I literally said that loud, Jed, because it just came completely out of nowhere, right? But in retrospect, I think what makes that moment and how it kills the entire scene in itself, right? Because yeah, when we saw the little bits of it in the trailer, it was like, oh, we getting dark side here. We don't know, right? Right. But what kills that whole scene, Jed, is just how out of place Flash is. Like this is how this is the cameo, this is the Flash cameo that we get in this, It makes no sense, Jed. It still doesn't. But yeah, before we move on, any last thing you want to say about Flash? Just being there because of reasons. Within a dream.
Yeah, no, that whole thing was just a mess. Again, it's typical. Look, it's typical time travel shit. DC just do that bullshit all the time. Dark future, we coming back to fix it and do this, blah blah blah. Fine. 10,000 times I see this. I see it executed well, not executed well. This is one of the examples where it is executed absolutely rubbishly. This is one of the worst executions of this idea because he have a dream, but where it come from? Again, was it Martian Manhunter beaming it in his head from the future? Or did Flash come and did Martian Manhunter read his mind and beam it into Batman head after? Why? Why did he dream this? That's not how dreams work. Another problem is that, this is not how dreams work either in reality or as narrative devices. Like, so at what point are you supposed to think about this and make it make sense? You see how you had to think like a crazy person for it to make sense? Yeah. It don't flow at all.
And none of it never follow up on the scene at all. I think that's a big slap to face. They never follow up.
Well, they kind of follow up on it with Snyder Cut, because remember the Snyder Cut, the Snyder Cut Justice League was supposed to they show another extra scene in the ending and they show Flash in that same metallic outfit thing, which looked kind of cool to be honest. But still, you had to give it a care. Right. I don't know. This is Robert Zack Snyder. At least for these movies, that it really feel like Michael Bay and the Transformers movies. Okay, it's the same thing where it's just thing happen. You have to follow it up with other thing, and then the editing is just a mess to try to gel it together. But none of it gels together, and it really heavily relies on you just
knowing the characters.
Knowing the characters and just relying on comic shit now. So it's like, no, you had to start from scratch and make it work. Listen, but I love these movies, but have a reason, and I don't think they're absolutely perfect. Well, only the third one especially, but this is why the Nolan movies work so well, because Nolan movies understand the pacing and the conceits and then change what they could change. Right? I don't know, for whatever reason, this stuff just didn't gel together. I feel like multiple movies in one, and there's too many people who talking past each other about this. That's why it don't really work. And there's a bunch of people who just, like, to be honest, just like should just stay out of the creative process and just give money. Like, that's the problem with producers. It really feel like that. You know, that would be cool boy, poitin. That would be dread. You know,
Yeah.
boy. Yeah, that would feel like it. It's 90s, and it's really 90s comics movie, yeah? So it's a set of bullshit and a set of speculation. A set of nonsense coming to the whole thing now.
Yeah.
And listen, I'll get to the end. When we get to the end to review this, I'll just say something that when I think about it in retrospect, utterly baffling. But we'll get into that when the movie done.
Right.